Please do be seated. I hope you enjoyed that. So our next little talk is entitled Prayer Walking with Jesus. So when Jesus was on this earth, how did he get around? How did he travel around? Anybody know? Just shout it out. Did he say walking? Thank goodness for that. Yes, he walked around, didn't he? Like everybody else, actually, at the time. He walked pretty much everywhere, even on water, when he needed to. And you know what, realistically, I think he walked around so much, largely because that was how everybody walked around. Unless you were rich enough to have a horse or a donkey, of course, but he wasn't. But you know, walking around so much really served his ministry well. It gave him time. It gave him time to talk to his disciples and to interact with passers-by and even whole big crowds. Jesus was accessible to everybody. That means he was there out in the public for everybody to come to, from beggars to religious leaders. And he never rushed. I don't think he ever rushed. If you can think of a story in the Bible where Jesus rushed somewhere, please tell me, because I can't think of any, but maybe there is something. But I think generally he had time, and he didn't run around like a headless chicken like we do sometimes. When we read the Gospels, we find example after example of Jesus carrying out his ministry outside as he was walking, just going about his daily life. Do you know what? We could go through one of the Gospels maybe this week and just have a look, record, count up how many times Jesus interacted with people when he was just out and about. And maybe one of those stories will really inspire you, and you could spend some time thinking about that and asking him to show you how that relates to your life today, our lives today. One of my favourite stories is the one of blind Bartimaeus. That's a really good one. And Jediah is going to come up now and read it for us, and it's from Mark 10, verses 46 to 52.
Then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, that is the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus from Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said to call him, so they called to the blind man. "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus. Your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road.
Before we go on, I do just want to thank Katie and Hannah and Jediah for reading this morning, because you've helped to lead the church service this morning, and that's something really special, so thank you very much. So through all of the noise of the crowd that was walking with him, Jesus hears the voice of Bartimaeus shouting out, and he knows that the person he can hear calling him has a need, and Jesus stops. He has time for the beggar that most people ignored, and who just then had told him to be quiet and not bother Jesus, but he calls him over. And Jesus turns away from the many to the one and gives him his attention. So just for that moment, Jesus turns away from the whole big crowd, all of those people, and he gives his attention just to one person, Bartimaeus, somebody that nobody else thought had any value, but Jesus did. And there seems to be just a very simple exchange between them, a conversation. And because of his faith, Bartimaeus receives his sight and follows Jesus. So Bartimaeus just called out to Jesus, who stopped and said, what do you want? What do you need? And Bartimaeus said, I want to see, because he was blind and he couldn't see, and Jesus healed him. Very straightforward, isn't it? No long conversations about theology or anything like that. Just like that. I love that. Jesus gave Bartimaeus his full attention, and he gives us his full attention too. Can you believe that? I find that really amazing, that out of all of the billions of people in the world right now, Jesus has time to stop for you and for me, and actually for everybody who calls out to him. And he is ready to walk and talk with us. So my next challenge is this. How about going on a prayer walk with Jesus? I don't know if you've ever done that before. Jesus' pace is unhurried, and ours should be too, I think. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but sometimes when I'm praying and walking, I like to imagine Jesus physically walking with me, because that helps make it a bit more real for me. Because, I don't know, sometimes we think Jesus is kind of up in the sky, or even when he's living in our hearts, which he is. Somehow for me to imagine him really walking on the pavement or on a footpath or whatever it is, right next to me, even maybe holding my hand, helps me to relate to him a little bit differently. Probably I give him a bit more time to talk back and I'm quiet and try and listen a bit more. So that might be something, if you've not done that before, that you could try and see what happens. Now you might be an experienced prayer walker already, which is amazing. But I've got a few ideas, if you feel like you're not quite sure what to do, that might help you along the way, just ideas. Some of these things we can all do. Some of them, if you're a child or a young person, you should really have an adult with you, because it involves talking to strangers, maybe. But first of all, when you set out, just start by asking Jesus to guide your thoughts and prayers. That's always a good start, isn't it? And then as you go, wherever you are, just notice what's around you and decide what you might pray about. You might see a parent walking down the road looking quite stressed, so you could definitely pray for them. Or maybe an ambulance goes past, or a fire engine, or a police car with their lights on and sirens on and you're zooming off somewhere. You could definitely pray for whatever situation they're going to, for God to be in that, to look after the people who need help. If you walk past a business or a school, you pray for them. But you know what? Maybe Jesus will just guide your attention to something in particular that isn't standing out. Maybe it's a house or a person walking by, and he wants you to just say a simple prayer for maybe whoever lives in the house of that person, even though you don't know them or what the situation is. He does. And if he guides you on that way, even if you just think it's not going to do any harm, is it, to say a quick prayer? So try and really listen to God's guiding. You could definitely ask God to bless the people that you walk past. And when we say blessing, that means God giving a good things to somebody. And again, we might not know what they need, but God does. We don't need to. Now, what if you come across somebody, you might have a quick chat, you might stop and have a quick chat. I'm sure we've all done that, haven't you? You might be walking along, you might just say good morning to somebody as you go past them. Maybe somebody, you just, I don't know, somebody's working in their front garden, doing some gardening, you stop and you say, the garden looks really lovely today. Whatever it is, maybe Jesus is just guiding you to have a quick conversation, to stop and give your attention to somebody. You never know. And you really have to just be listening to the Spirit as you do that. Maybe it's just to stop and chat, but maybe he's guiding you to say something specific. Do you know what? Sometimes just a hello or a quick chat really blesses somebody. And I'm sure you've had that feeling when somebody's just met your eye, where you've had eye contact with a stranger, they've nodded or said good morning, whatever it is, and you know that you have been seen by somebody else and you've been valuable enough, I suppose, for them to acknowledge you. And for some, I think for all of us, that's really important, but some people might not have lots of people doing that. And just that tiny little thing will really bless them. And it's so simple, and God can use us in that way. How about this? Maybe if it feels right at the time, you say to the person, do you know what? I'm a Christian and I'm on a little prayer walk at the moment. Is there anything that you would like me to pray for you? Apparently, I don't do this usually, but I've heard of other people who do, and apparently most people will really value that and say yes and give you a little prayer request. Now you might just go away, carry on and pray for them later, but if you're feeling like it's the right thing to do, you could pray right then and there for them if they're open to that. Does that feel scary, that idea? It kind of does to me, to be honest. Okay, that's not something I normally do, but I like to think that I might, that I'd be brave enough to do that. So, like I say, you have to be led by Jesus to do things like this, but he can really give us some boldness and some courage to go and share his good news. And it might be something very, very simple, or it might be something really brave like that, but he can use all of these things. And I've got an example. A few years ago, we did the blessing course for Lent, and at the end of it, some of us went out for a prayer walk, a blessing walk around town. And some of you, I think were on that walk, and I was, and Peter was there, and he had his dog collar on, looking like a minister, and he was carrying a wooden cross, a bit, it might have been that one, but it looked like that one, as we went along. And a man stopped and said, what are you doing? And even though there was a crowd of us walking, Peter stopped for that one man. He let the rest of us carry on walking, and he stopped and he had a chat with this man. And I can't remember whether the man asked for prayer or if Peter offered it, but the man had a prayer request. And Peter prayed for him right then and there. And it was really amazing. It was so wonderful to have that real life experience, not just hearing about somebody else doing it, but seeing it and thinking, do you know what, that was fine. That was really good, and there wasn't anything scary about it at all, because it was just a conversation. So let's be brave. And prayer walks can be anywhere and any length. So while it is great to go out for a proper walk, we could prayer walk around the supermarket. You could prayer walk when you're taking your bins out, if that's where you're going. You could prayer walk between your armchair and the kettle. It's remembering that God is with us all the time and praying as we go. So that's my challenge. Go out for a little prayer walk, whatever that looks like for you this week. So for our prayers now, we are going to go on a virtual prayer walk for a few minutes, right here, sitting in our seats, believe it or not. And we're actually going to go on a prayer walk around a coastal path in Cornwall that starts at St Ives. And it turns out if you go onto YouTube and look for walking videos, there's a lot of them. People take their camera on a walk so we can see wherever it is they're going in the countryside. So I found a really nice one along the coastal path. So if we could just start that going, Kathy, we're not going to have the sound on because there's a couple of ladies walking, they chat a little bit, but we'll just get that going. There they are. I don't know who they are, but they take us on this little walk. So we're going to watch this just for a couple of minutes and imagine that we're doing this walk that they're doing, and we're going to imagine that Jesus is with us as we go along this path. And they are going through St Paul's to start. That's my favourite place. Just hang on, just look at this. The beach. Oh, it's lovely. The Tate Museum is along there. There you go, that's the Tate Gallery. Very nice. I could be very distracted by this. Okay, so we're on the coastal path. So just imagine you're doing this as a prayer walk. And we're going to stay silent for this. I'm not going to lead intercessions verbally today, but we're going to let Jesus inspire our prayers as we watch this for a few minutes, okay? But we might want to remember what's going on in the world and our country, in our own town. We could definitely be praying for the Haverhill Show, which is, just across the road at the moment, and all of the people there. And of course, we remember our families and friends, the charities that are important to us, and so on. But just try and really imagine yourself walking along. You might even, as you watch, you might want to walk your fingers along your leg or other arm to imagine that you're walking to help you focus as you go along. And we'll just be quiet and unhurried as we go on this little walk and as we pray. So we're just going to have a couple of minutes of this. I know it's a bit different, but we'll just see how it goes. And then at the end, I'll come up and we will say the Lord's Prayer together. Okay? So just enjoy and pray.